All right, everyone. Well, thanks everybody for joining today. Really excited to have you all here. Howdy, y'all. Welcome to another adventure in Wild West coding. First of all, I really want to thank everybody for joining live, or if you're watching this in a recorded version. Thanks a lot. I hope you're finding the content useful. My name is Ken Alger. I'm with Cisco's DevNet program. In this episode of Wild West Coding, I'm going to continue on with building the routes for the Rodeo Apps API that we've been working on. As a reminder, I'm building this application using the Go language and the Gin framework. And I'll have links to those resources as well as other project resources and the project repository on GitHub in the video notes. But if you want to follow along live, head over to the GitHub repository to get the code. And the URL will go over here, and it's up here in the code comments of our main.go file. And hopefully we can get a lower third or a CTA on there. But the URL is github.com/Ken W. Alger, that's me, /wild-west-coding-rodeo app, just like it has up here. Okay. And hey, while you're there, star the repo. I'm sure that does something for somebody, but I like to see stars on my stuff, and it just shows that people are watching. So that's great. Okay, like I said, I'm working on the API endpoints for the mocked up data about rodeos, and have a single endpoint done that returns all the rodeo data that's stored in our MongoDB database. Now, other features of the app will come hopefully sooner rather than later. I mean, as soon as we get the endpoints up and going, I have a few things planned to kind of add some other features. But today, I really want to get those endpoints working. So in our last episode, 2 weeks ago, I left off with writing comments for a list single rodeo handler function. And here in the IDE, so we have our main.go file. And if we go in here to handlers, which is where all of our handlers are going to go. And right now we just have rodeo handlers. So we have here, and if we scroll down a bit to, right here, line 63 is where we put in the code comments for this new handler that we're going to be doing. Okay, so if we look at this, right? So we're going to take an ID as a parameter and return the rodeo document here in JSON format. All right, so the function then, we need to grab the ID that's being passed in as a parameter from the URL, convert that to an object ID for MongoDB lookup. That way we can use that in our database query. And then we need to check that our rodeo conforms to our struct and query the database for a specific rodeo based on the ID value. So with that in mind, we can go down here. Let me move this up a little bit just for ease of viewing for folks. So inside our function, I think first thing we need to do is we need to grab that ID and give that something, right? So it's going to be param, and you need to spell things correctly, and it's going to be the ID. All right. Then we need to convert that to an object ID. Not going to bother with errors, and that's going to be a primitive object ID from hex is what we want to look for here. Object ID from hex, and we're going to pass in the ID. All right, and then we need to look at our rodeos here. So we'll do rodeos, and that's a model rodeo. All right, so a little bit of error handling here. We should be able to bind that JSON to the rodeo there. And error is nil. So there, context JSON, we'll send a status bad request. bad request. And we'll just say error. And make it a little bit cleaner, and we'll pass the error out. And if that happens, then we'll return. Okay, and then down here, we're going to have cursor. So MongoDB returns cursors typically. So we're going to do a cursor, and that's going to be our handler. The collection, in this case, we're using the rodeo collection. We're going to do find one. So MongoDB has operations like find one. So we'll pass in the context there, and then we'll pass in our search parameter. And in our case, we're going to pass in the underscore ID, which is the MongoDB's ID for documents. And we're going to say we want that to match our object ID and not bsom, bson. All right. Okay, so those errors I think are going to go away here once we continue moving on through this function. One thing that this line here reminds me of is a couple of weeks ago, a couple episodes ago, kind of struggled a little bit when I defined rodeos variable up in our list rodeos handler. So if we go up here a little ways, I think it's, right here, line 50. So we can change this to rodeos, and we'll do var rodeos and make it the same as we had down there, models rodeo. Okay. So now we're getting that error. But you know what? Let's just undo that since it was working before. There we go. All right. So now if we come back here, so after we get the data back from the database, we need to decode it into our rodeo model, and then we'll check for errors from that, and then we can return the data, right? Does that kind of sound like a plan? So here, I'll do another error check. Decode at rodeo. And if error is not equal to nil, I'm going to have it do something. I'm not sure why we're getting that there. Seems maybe we just want that. Interesting. Well, we'll come back to that here in a second and see what's going on. So if we're the error there will so if we're not able to find that rodeo or it doesn't decode, and it's some wonky version of it, we'll send back an error message here. It'll be an HTTP, and we'll do the internal server error, 500 error, gen h, right? And now we'll send back this error as well. And we'll return. And if all that goes just yippee skippy well, we can return our HTTP status OK. And we'll return the rodeo. And since we're only dealing with one rodeo, we just want that. Okay. There we go. So we're, that looks good, right? I think. So let's give that a try. Let's go over here to our rodeos JSON. Let's just grab a random ID here. So we'll grab this. That's the Wild West Buckaroo. It's just sample rodeo. And if we go over to Postman here, and we're going to do, so our route is rodeos. Let's create a new one here, and we do localhost 8080 rodeos with that rodeo ID. We also need to go start our server so that it will actually work. Do, 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 do. There we go. So we're going on 8080. Now let's go back over here to Postman. And if we send this, we get that. Okay, that's extra special. So if we go here, we still able to get all that. So we can get all that. That's great. I wonder what's going on here. Let's go over here to main.go. Stop our server, minimize that. Go over here to the handlers. Yeah, it typically is going to help if we, no, we should have that. List single rodeo handler. Rodeos ID, API v1, rodeos, and then the ID. API v1, rodeos, and then the ID. And if we send that, we get nothing because we stopped the server. So let's run this again. Okay. Rodeos, we get end of file. Interesting. Let's try and see if we get something with a different rodeo ID, if we get the same error. End of file again. That's fun times again. All right, let's go over and see if we can get this one out of here. If it's all right, so that's not working the way that it's intended. So what's happening here? All right, so let's go back to our rodeo handler and see what's going on. All right, so we have our ID and our parameter. We're getting the parameter. Object ID, we're converting that over here to object ID from hex, passing in the ID. Our rodeo is models of rodeo. Should bind there. Should bind JSON. There, if the error is not equal to nil, so we're getting something back. So let's try and see if we're getting anything back over here. So we're going to do the name, and we'll do name is that one. Let's make sure that that's all good. Cancel that. So, okay, so let's come over here. So we're not going to, we're going to cheat a little bit here. We're going to say this is the name instead of the ID. And there, we don't need to do that. We're just going to pass in the ID, which should be a string. So we're not going to use the object ID here just for testing purposes. Let's comment that out. make that happy. All right, so we're going again here. Let's come in here and what is it, autem? End of file still. That's interesting. So what do the headers look like here? We're just getting into file. Can go in here then. Stop the server. Let's change all this back. Put that back in. Let's see where it's coming, where we're getting that error. So error, status request, and error, server error. All right, let's run this again. And we're going to go back here. We're going to grab our object ID. Go back to Postman here. Send that off. So the status request is not happy with what's happening. Okay, so that's a good thing here. We know that it's happening up here in the status request. So it's not being able to bind that. Let me see one thing here. Try something out here real quick. That's interesting. So Raid says check rodeo word. Which rodeo word are you talking about there, my friend? Okay, so we should be getting actually let's run that again here. I want to see a couple things. Double check and make sure that I'm not going completely bonkers. All right, over here, do that, and send, we get into file. All right, we want to save this one just for later on anyway. So get request, single radio, save that. All right, so if we come over here, get request for index, that one's working. So our server's working. We have all that. That's great. This one, what's this? Okay. Sean says no need to call should bind JSON since it's a get call. Maybe. So let's see. So if we just do this, right? Um, and let's start this up again. Maybe that will do it. Hopefully. Send this. No documents in result. So that's something something different. But now we're getting an internal server error and saying no documents are in the result. So that's interesting. Interesting. Oh, well, yeah. I'm guessing because we didn't change that back to underscore ID, that would do it, maybe? All right, let's try this again and see how we're doing. And we send that and we still don't get any documents back. I'm wondering here if, okay, so trying to find that, and it's saying, hey, we can't, right now it's not able to find that. So that should, I wonder if it's already coming in and it's going to be happy with that as it is. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So let's try this out. Listening back on port 8080, send that. Hey, there we go. Look at that. So we have our Wild West Buckaroo, and we're getting all of our data back. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't have to do. So that's always nice to not have code that you don't need. All right. Well, thanks everybody for the help there and for sticking with me through that. It's kind of fun to learn. All right, so there we go. We're getting a single radio back. That's awesome. So we saved that off in Postman so that we have that route saved. That's dandy. And yeah, so now we can, let's stop our server since we're going to be doing some other stuff. And we can commit these changes. So we got list a single rodeo from the database. Come on, mousy. There we go. So go, push anyway, push. All right. So there we go. That's great. So which route should we tackle next, folks? And as you may recall, from database operations, there's this acronym called CRUD. So create, read, update, and delete. We've tackled two different read operations. Haven't been overly complicated from code. If I learn Go and Gen framework well enough, it should be pretty easy. Maybe the next one I think should be delete. I mean, that's should be a relatively simple operation. So we can come in here and let's start doing the comments again here. So we'll do Swagger operation is delete, and we're going to do a rodeos with an ID, and it's going to there, and it will delete a rodeo. And so it's going to locate Let me bump this up to the top of the screen a little bit, just make it a little bit easier to view. So it's going to locate the rodeo whose ID value matches the ID parameter. New line sent by the client. We'll delete the rodeo from the database. And we'll have it return a successful deletion. I can't even type today. Deletion message. All right. Parameters. So we want the name, ID. We want the path there. Let's go in. The description is the ID of the rodeo. We want it to be required. Talk about that here in a second. And it will take type of string. And it's going to produce application JSON. And then it's going to come back with a couple of different responses. Now that I think about this, if we come up here and look at our list single rodeo handler, so this is the HTTP status OK, which is our 200, and our internal server error is 500, but we zonked out the bad request. So let's take that out of our documentation while we're thinking about it here. So the responses that our delete function is going to do here, we'll do a 200. And the description of that one will be successful operation. Operation, there we go. We'll have a 500 error as well. And the description of that will just be the internal server error. Server error. All right. So looking through that there, and we want a couple S's in there. There we go. So looking through here, we're going to take an ID that's going to delete a specific rodeo from the database, and our API will say that the ID field is required to delete. So up here, required is true. So we don't really want to do a delete operation without an ID. For example, to delete all the data in the database, that doesn't seem like a super desirable feature in most circumstances. I mean, maybe just me, but I don't think doing that from an API standpoint is particularly fan-dabby-dozy. So let's write out our function here. So we're going to do, it's going to be another handler, and it's a rodeo handler, and we're going to call it delete rodeo handler, right? And we're going to bring in the context. All right, so what are we going to be grabbing here? So we're going to grab the ID, which is our parameter ID. And then here, we're going to have it do a delete one operation. So again, MongoDB has different naming things than SQL. Delete one, as you might guess, deletes a single document from the collection. It takes an argument in. So in this case, our ID. So it brings that in from there, and I forgot the little equal sign here, and it's giving us all sorts of little red squigglies. All right. So here, if our error is not equal to nil, we'll do some things. We'll say we have our status of internal server error, and then we'll send back an error of error internal server, and we will pass the error in or out, I guess, and then we'll return. Okay, so let's come back down here and we'll add some more blank lines, pop that up a little bit more for easier to read. And then, so assuming that all works, we're going to send back a status OK code and say, hey, we did exactly what you wanted us to do. We deleted that, the document that you sent in, told us to delete. So we'll send back a message, and we'll just say the radio has been deleted. All right. So that looks, oops, there we go. So that doesn't look too terribly complicated. We're grabbing the ID from the parameter, from the URL string that's being passed in. And then we're going to find the single radio, whatever that ID is. We perform a delete one operation within the MongoDB database, which, again, as the name suggests, will delete a single document from the database. And we're passing in the provided ID, the underscore ID, which is unique throughout the collection. So we're just making sure that we're just passing in something that's going to be unique to a single document, and we're deleting that one document. We handle any errors that happen, and assuming that all goes well, we're returning an OK status with a message that the radio has been deleted. All right, let's go back over here to main.go. We will do this, and we're going to switch that over to version 1, and that all looks good. No squigglies. No squigglies there. That's groovy. So if we run this now, clear, and go run main.go. All right, so let's go back over to Postman, and we'll create a new one here. We're going to change, we'll just use this same one. We will make this a delete request. We will send in that ID, and if we send it off, hey, the radio has been deleted. So that's good, right? That's just what we wanted. That's promising. Bye-bye radio. Now if we go over here to MongoDB Compass, which allows us to look at everything, and we do a search here for underscore ID, and then I'm going to copy and paste in the underscore ID that we just deleted because it's long and I don't really want to type all that. And we need to, I think quotes around there will work. And we do a find, we should get back nothing, no results. Sure enough, it's not there. So that's, like I said, that one was pretty straightforward. We just take the ID and delete it. So yeah, we'll stop our server here. come over, and now we can commit those changes. Yeah, so we delete a single rodeo from the database. There's another API route, another CRUD operation done. That's great. So we just have two more CRUD operations to go. We have create and update. Yeah, so I think next we can tackle our create method here. And we'll do what were we calling it here over in main.go? New rodeo handler. Okay, so we're gonna come down. We'll bump this up for visibility, and we'll start doing our new rodeo handler here. Okay, so like we've been doing, let's do our documentation. Swagger operation is, so this is going to be a post. We're going to do rodeos will be the route, and rodeos, and it's going to be an insert of a rodeo. So it's going to insert new rodeo into the database from the JSON that we're going to send it, received in the request body, and we'll just have it return what we sent it, returns the new rodeo as a response. Okay, so we're going to have it produce, again, application JSON, and the responses, do a couple different responses here. Have a 201, which is a description is a successful creation of the resource. If it's a 400 error, it'll be invalid input. If something doesn't conform to our kind of our model for a rodeo, it won't like that. So if we're trying to insert a Tesla into our rodeo database, it wouldn't be happy. And 500 error will say it's just going to be a random internal server error. All right, so let's go back over here. And we're just going to look and see what our rodeo model kind of, our rodeo object looks like, and see anything in here that we kind of need to consider as we're going through here. So, we have our rodeo. There's already an underscore ID field defined. Probably best to, programmatically generate that instead of trying to create that ourselves. Provides uniqueness across the database collection. So that's important. There's also this published at and updated at fields. And again, we can have our app generate those for us. Okay, so let's go back over here. And we'll, again, give a little bit more space for viewing. And we'll create our new rodeo handler. So it's a new function. Bring in our rodeo handler bit to this all. It's going to be called new rodeo handler. And we'll bring in our gen context with it. Okay. So we need a rodeo variable here to handle things for us. And And I'm wondering here if we need to bind that to JSON. So let's try this and we'll see if that works this time or not. Right, so there. And again, we'll do a little bit of error handling. So that's, oops, there we go. JSON, HTTP, and we'll send back a bad request. And we'll just send error, bad request. And we'll return the error with that information. Okay. There's a little bit of error handling. So that's kind of what we've done in the past. We're going to see if that should bind JSON is needed here or not. And yeah, so next up, we need to create the ID. We need to create the published at and the updated at information. So we're going to say here that rodeo ID is going to be equal to primitive new object ID. And then we have rodeo published at, and that's going to, we'll just say that it's time now. We want our space there, and our updated at. So as we're creating this, published and updated can be the same. And then when we go to the next route, the update rodeo handler, we will have to just do the updated, but the published won't be generated at that point. Okay, so next up here, we need to insert our rodeo into the database with an insert one call and check for and report all of our errors and all that. And then we can do the return of our status and return the actual rodeo that was inserted here. So we'll do a little error here, grabbing the MongoDB database, just like we've done in the past. We're going to do an insert one, right? So that's that context, and we're going to insert the rodeo. All right, so now if the error is not equal to nil, let's print out the whole error this time. And then we will return an internal server error. And so 500 error. So here in Gen and with the way this works is you can either put in the error code. So I could just be putting 500 and 200 and 400 all there. I find that it's a little bit easier to not have every possible thing memorized and just be able to say, oh, here's the status for the internal server error that's coming back. So that's why I've been doing it that way. And our error message here, error internal server. And well, actually, you know what? We'll do, let's do it this way, I think. We'll do this and just have it specifically state that it's an error while inserting a new rodeo. Yeah. That looks good. And then if that doesn't work, we'll go through there and return that. Otherwise, we're going to do the indented JSON. We're going to say HTTP status created here. So that's our 201. And we're going to return the rodeo. Okie dokie. So that should do it for a post route, right? So there's a couple things that we brought in. So time. So let's go up here to our imports and make sure the time got put in as it did. Thank you, Goland, for handling those for us. That's great. I don't know why we have a little red squiggly here. Need a trailing comma. Okay, that's fine. I can add a comma. Commas are good. Commas save lives, as they say. And now if we go over here to main.go, we should be able to go in here. And that was our new rodeo handler. So that doesn't seem to like that. And we're going to switch this over to version 1. Okay. So let's see if this works, right? So since we deleted our Wild West Buckaroo from the database, that seems like a good one to put back in. So we'll copy that whole bit. And we'll go over here to Postman. We'll add another route. This is going to be a post. And it's going to go here in the body section. And we choose raw. And we're sending in JSON. All right, so we're going to send this in, but we're not going to have the underscore ID field. Okay. And that all looks great. And then our, let's go over here and make sure that our route that we are wanting here. So we're going to just post this to API/v1 rodeos, right? Which I think is right here. Okay, we'll go over here to post and we'll send that. Let's see what happens. Oh, we need to start our server again. Silly, silly me. Okay, let's go back over to Postman and try this again. Hey, look at that. We have it. It's in there. We sent the request to our endpoint. We can save this for later. So post single rodeo, and we'll save that. That's great, and that's great. We have another CRUD operation completed. That's kind of exciting. Let's save this one too, and we'll do this is a delete single rodeo. Okay, so we have those routes up and going. That's great. Let's stop our server again. And we can go here. That's looking spectacular. Add a new single rodeo to the database. That's pretty great. And figure out what those warnings are here eventually. All right. So we have about 10 minutes left. Let's see here if we can get through probably one of the more complicated ones. It's not too terribly bad, right? But it does require a little bit more code and whatnot than some of the other operations. So let's see if we can get through our last operation here of update. So let's write out our comments. So we're going to take in our ID, and it's going to update the rodeo, right? And so we're asking this to update an existing rodeo whose ID value matches the ID parameter that's sent by the client, right? Um, with the request body from the put request. And that seems fairly straightforward. And then we want to return, we want to make sure it's commented. We want to return the updated rodeo the response. So the parameters that we're going to need here for this operation, we want the name to be the ID, path, the description is the ID of the rodeo. We want this required as well. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to not take in an ID to update something. And we want that to be type string. And it's going to produces, again, we're doing the application JSON, right? And our responses that we are going to need here. Have a 200 response. And the description there will be a successful operation. We have a 400 error, or 400 response here of invalid input. And 404 is a possibility as well, right? Doesn't look like I know how to spell up here. And this could be an invalid rodeo ID. Give us some space here. All right, so what do we need to do here? We need to grab the ID parameter from the URL, update the document that's of that ID with the new information that's passed in during our put request. We'll also, like I mentioned before, we'll also want to update the updated at field with a new timestamp to reflect when the rodeo was updated. So let's try and get through this here. Handler, rodeo handler, update rodeo handler. That's what we'll call that. Context. And so we're going to get the parameter ID. Right. We're going to need rodeo is going to be this. Seems like stuff that we've done. All right. I'm going to see. Well, I don't think we're going to need to change that ID. I think we can just use that ID. And then eventually here, we're going to want to return status OK, the rodeo. All right. So here's the meat here is to handle how we're going to handle the update portion of things here. All right, so let's add a comment here. Take the updated information from the request body and update the rodeo. Update the rodeo with the updated at field and current time, and save it to the database. All right, so that's what we need to do here. All right, so we're going to do our little bit of talking to MongoDB. We're going to do an update one operation. So here, again, we are just passing in, trying to find the document within the MongoDB database that matches our ID, right? So we're going to do all that, but so now we're going to do the MongoDB bit of this. We're going to say it's a set operation based on D. So this is going to reset everything within this object or the rodeo with the items that are being passed in from our request, right? So this, again, not super challenging, just a little cumbersome here, a little bit more code to do. Got to go through and get all the names right and all that sort of thing. So rodeo, pro rodeo, that works. Our key, start date. The value here is the rodeo start date. The end date. Rodeo end date. The venue. The rodeo venue. The events will be the rodeo events we're passing in. And then the updated at field is going to be a new timestamp. All right, and then we need to make sure that we have all of our lovely closing brackets in place. And then we'll handle that error. JSON, and we'll send that out with a internal server error. Error updating rodeo. All right. So real quickly, if we walk through this, right, we're getting the ID parameter, and we're doing an update one operation. We're passing in all the things we're updating, and doing a set operation here inside MongoDB to set all those fields. So if we go in here, so let's try this out real quick. I know we're getting real close to end of time here. I was hoping to get to a few other things today, but I think we're doing pretty well. So let's go in here. Let's get a single one. Let's find this one. So we have this one here with a name of Nihil. Let's go in here to Postman. And again, we're going to do a put request. Where did that one go? Here. So we're going to do a put request to that ID. And if we get that document again here, grab all this. All right, so we want body, raw, JSON, put that in here. let's change this to, I don't know, let's just change it to the Wild West coding live stream. It'll be a big event. And we hit send. We get 404 page not found, probably because we don't have, we need to run this again. With, let's make sure that we're sending that in there, send that. 404 page not found. That's interesting. Because I don't know why that is. So I know we're a little over time. Another fun stopping point. We get to do a little bit more troubleshooting next time. Thank you everybody for joining today. Sorry about the abrupt ending, but like I said, I know we're a little bit over time. We will see you all in 2 weeks for another episode of Wild West Coding. Next time we'll get through this error. I want to show you a little bit about the documentation, the Swagger documentation, and then let's talk a little bit about API security, and we can start down the path of what we might look at to make this API a little bit stronger and a better one. So until then, everyone, happy trails.